So thank you again for taking your time. I hope you can see the slides now. And let me just start with again a big thank you and for part of the Rheia team, being part of the Rheia trial. It's not easy. We realize that, and we appreciate all your efforts very much. And in order to kick it off a little bit after the summer, because as we know, first we were hit by the COVID crisis, and then the summer period came, which is ultimately a bit of a slowdown anyway. We would like to now focus on Rheia and the enrollment, and maybe because we have several sites where there is a bigger success, to share their experience, how they do. So we would like to simply speak to you this last week of August in order to get together and share the experiences. But first of all, we would like to share also the current study status, because those of you who are not regularly entering the Rheia webpage might not be aware of the latest developments. And then we jump on the recruitment strategies discussion and how to find the optimal patient pathway for you and your center. So I hope it will be an interesting conversation. Please make it lively. Don't hesitate to jump in as necessary to really drive the discussion. But with this being said, I would like to also welcome our hosts, who are Helen Elchaninov and Didier Cheche, our PIs, and also on behalf of the surgical group, a member of the steering committee, Nikolaos Bonaros from Innsbruck. And first, let me also welcome the team from SSS, from our CRO, who will walk us through the participation countries and sites and updates, quick overview of the current status. So please, Sabine or Astrid, go ahead and walk us through it.
Yes, hello everybody. It's Sabine from SSS, and it's my pleasure to present the status to you as replacement for Christine, who is the project management at SSS for this trial and is currently on holiday. I was asked to give you only a brief overview of the status so that enough time is left for a hopefully intensive discussion. So let me promptly start with an overview on the country level. We start with Austria. Both sites are active with enrolling patients. In total, 8 patients were enrolled, but 1 patient dropped prior to the treatment. In France, we do have 8 sites at the start, of which 6 sites are actively enrolling patients. 2 sites show pre-screening activities but could not yet enroll a patient, and some 25 patients were enrolled in France. So I would like to go to Germany. Yeah, thanks. In Germany, 2 out of 5 sites are active with having enrolled in some 14 patients. 1 site is ready to start, but could not yet enroll any patient from the 13 patients pre-screened. For 2 other sites, the contract is pending, but for 1 of these sites, we received today the original contract, so that this site will now be released to start this patient recruitment. For the other site, some further adaptations to the contract. So the contract came up recently, which we are now on follow-up. Switzerland, all 3 sites are ready to start, but only 1 of the sites is enrolling patients. Up to date, 2 patients were enrolled in Switzerland. 1 site has pre-screened 33 patients, and the other has pre-screened 2 patients. Both sites could not yet find any eligible patient. In Italy, we do have 3 sites, of which only 1 site was able to enroll 1 patient. Another site is open for recruitment, but did not show yet any screening activities. For the 3rd site, contract and EC approval are still pending. So going ahead with Ireland. Last week, we received for site O'Connor a final EC approval, and we expect the contract to come back to us soon. There is only the hospital signature missing, so that the site can be initiated by beginning of September. So this is at least our plan. For the other side, NEC outcome is not expected before the 25th of August, which is today, because the EC office was fully closed under the state. For UK, EC approval is in place. The local NH Trust evaluation is still pending for the 5 UK sites. Due to pandemic reasons, the set-up activities of the local NHS are very slowly moving forward. Also, contract negotiations are still pending. The Netherlands. Yesterday, we received full EC approval for all 3 sites. And St. Bugs is now going to be released for patient recruitment. So the shipment is going out today. The other 2 sites will follow soon after internal hospital approval has been provided.
Yeah, we were very happy that finally this got through, and I just shared with Stefan that it is becoming really a nightmare in our country to get the stuff approved. It's the ethics committees are becoming so difficult nowadays, and they ask questions that are totally irrelevant, and so it's not getting much easier. It would be much easier if you do it through a private place such as Nieuwegein or Eindhoven, but that wasn't possible, so we had to do it central through ours. And yeah, I must say this is not, I was speaking to Stefan, and it's really becoming very complex in places like ours to get anything done.
Yes, I just can confirm this because speaking as CEO, we never have received from an ethic committee and letter for answering, just complicated and detailed. So it took us really a lot of time to go through.
Yeah, just a short note on that. I think after all the things that happened with this New England article, this Lancet article that were retracted with all these fake data and so, and then also the increasing patient protection and data protection, and at the same time the liability that is increasing very big here in the Netherlands. And then finally the digital and the AI, which is not related to this here, but that makes the things more and more cumbersome. And I foresee not a good future, honestly.
Yeah, but finally we received the award. So.
Yeah, but it was hell to get it. I've never had something that lasted so long and I felt very embarrassed towards the study that we were having this much trouble.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, well, let's hope that it will not stay like this, or that not even in other places they will become difficult like yours.
To make it up to you, I'm doing this from my holiday. I was just mailing you that I couldn't come, but here I am.
No, thank you, Sharon. It's really much appreciated. Okay, let's move on.
Proceeding with Sweden. The single site in Sweden submitted to the Ethics Committee on the 5th of August. And onwards, the 11th of August, this was the time point we paid the EC invoice. The 60 days clock has started for the EC to reply to us. So might take some further weeks until we come to a positive end there. And finally, Finland. Both sites are open to enroll patients, but only one site showed some screening activities. In total, 4 patients have been screened there.
Thank you very much, Sabine, for walking us through the center update. Just to summarize the enrollment status, so far we have 24 sites initiated. However, only 13 sites are actively enrolling patients. And so far we have 49 patients enrolled, out of which 22 were randomized to TAVI and 27 to surgical. So definitely there is still a lot of room for those sites who were activated to really start actively enroll patients. And we because the expectations as we have projected are way higher than the reality. Of course there is an impact of the COVID, but not only that, it's also the slow start of the centers and then some difficulties when it comes to recruitment. So the enrollment aim, as it was discussed with all of you, was to have at least as a minimum 2 patients per site per month. However, currently the overall average enrollment rate is only 0.4 patients per site per month. So I believe we can all agree here that it's not sufficient in order to really meaningfully enroll the trial at a good speed. So that's why we asked the question, what is withholding the sites from enrollment? And we wanted to see the pre-screening logs in order to identify the potential issues. And as you can see, out of almost 190 patients evaluated and pre-screened in the active centers, only 50 patients were enrolled. So it starts to be really frustrating in some of the centers, like for instance in Bern, where they pre-screened almost 40 patients and enrolled exactly nobody. I believe it needs to be really frustrating, this situation. So we wanted to understand it even better at a more detailed level. So we also wanted to see what was the failure reasons, why the patients were not involved or enrolled into the trial. And the majority of them, unfortunately, seem to be not eligible for both treatment options. So this triggered a question if actually the centers are looking into the correct patient pool, or what is the actual enrollment or recruitment strategy in the particular centers, because obviously they are not really fully successful in finding the patients. And that's why we feel it's important now to open this question and to discuss the strategies, especially in those centers who were able to successfully enroll the patient. So the question really is, how can we increase the number of patients enrolled successfully, and what is the best recruitment strategy? And definitely there should be for each of the individual center an ideal patient pathway for a Rheia. So here I would like to ask especially our hosts to maybe share with us what's the best way which works for them, and maybe trigger the discussion about the potential barriers at the center level, etc., which may be overcome.
So could we just, before we discuss that very important point, Jana, come back 2 slides on the about the main reasons for not enrolling the patient, because it's I found it very, very interesting. Because for sure, one of the reasons seems to be that the patient is not eligible either for TAVI or surgery. And it seems to be most of the time because of the comorbidities. So it tells us that quite intuitively, the population that we as a group have identified for TAVI is more about healthy females, not extremely old, and without major comorbidities that will refer them predominantly for TAVI. So it seems that we are targeting intuitively more a surgical population, ladies that would require surgery, because when we see that the comorbidities and so on and the ineligibility for surgery are the main reasons, it really draws the optimal profile of the patient. So, and we're going to share our experience, but it's exactly the case in Toulouse. Most of the patients that the ladies that we have enrolled are coming from the surgical pool, and so that's why we thought that it would be very important to have a kind of discussion with surgeons, with our teams, to understand how we can improve things and how we can improve the pathway of the patient. So this was a snapshot of the profile of the patient. So there isn't a single pathway, and we may describe our own pathways in our local institutions, but there are several questions that we need to discuss. So the first one is, who is going to see first a patient? Because when the patient is referred for an aortic treatment, the first contact has a real impact on the perception of the different options by the patient. So we need to discuss that and to understand how we can make sure that the first contact is not going to bias at the end of the day the decision of the patient, because ideally the patient should come, as you can see in the picture, in a dedicated heart valve clinic, ideally as an outpatient fashion, and then is going to be referred either to the transcatheter arm, most of the time in the cardiology department, or to the surgical treatment, and most of the time in the surgical department. And so we need to understand from this pool of the patients who are already directed towards a procedure, if there aren't still ideal candidates for Rheia. That is to say, from in the TAVI group, maybe some patients, some ladies are not as frail, as don't have so many comorbidities that would preclude the surgery, so they become a good candidates for Rheia. And it's the same thing in the surgical department. If we have ladies that are not extremely young and with favorable femoral anatomies and an anticipated risk of a very low complication rate for a transcatheter procedure, these patients could be a good candidates for Rheia also. So it tells us that there is a debate that we need to have as a heart team, and really discuss all these patients that are more or less in the gray zone between TAVI or surgery, or that are real surgical candidate without being extremely young that would preclude a TAVI procedure. So it's really the base of the discussion that we want to have today. How is it in your institutions? What are the obstacles that you have to overcome to be able to enroll patients? Do you see the patients together as surgeons and cardiologists? And how can we help you to really identify these candidates and to really speed up the enrollment of this very important trial, because it's a very important trial that is going to change the perception of the therapy in this typical women cohort of patients, because there aren't any randomized trials focusing on women. So we have something that is really going to be valuable to the community. And how can we make sure that we have an adequate enrollment in that trial? So having said that, maybe we can start the discussions with a quite successful center. And Sabine, you are a really, really successful center, and you are a surgeon. So maybe you could describe how you proceed within your heart team, just to give an example, to see if there are things that we can pick up from your experience.
So, of course, one of our advantages is that we are really a high volume center, especially the surgical group of the surgical clinic is really a high volume clinic. We have a very good heart team. We always see all patients by a surgeon and a cardiologist. And I would also agree with you said that we recruit most of the patients for this study out of the surgical pool. Yes, and it is very important that the attitude, how we speak with the patients is, you are a surgical candidate. We, because many people come to us and say, I want to have a TAVI. That's what we see every day. When we go to the patients, we tell them, you are a surgical candidate. And if you really want to have a TAVI, you have to join the study. We tell them we don't do TAVI in patients like you are, and we can only offer you a TAVI by a 50% chance if you participate in this study.
And Stefan, so this is you have another experience, so you have some difficulties to enroll patients. So what are the main obstacles that you faced?
We see three main reasons. Of course, our situation is also that we have a common heart team, but the majority of patients goes through the cardiology department. And of course, patients are referred to our center also specifically for TAVRs. This is the first bar. The second bar is patients that would sign and wouldn't refuse to do this and also take a surgical arm, but they very often have a bicuspid valve, so they will be excluded. And the last group is comorbidities that are defined in the trial protocol that also exclude further patients. And even with the high volume center that Sabine just showed, we have to see that 70 patients were screened to enroll 13. This is a 20% enrollment rate. So we're also about to enroll patients, but we had to do 19 screens to do 1 or 2. And there's just a chance that 2 that would have signed, actually one refused and the other had comorbidities. But this shows you one of the problems. So one idea or one discussion point for me would be, are there subtypes of bicuspid valve that we would feel confident enough to give a reasonable chance also by a TAVR? We have experience. We know that with the PARTNER 3 trial, where it was not tested, and with the acceptance, of course, of the Evolut now in low risk and bicuspid valves, the younger the patient becomes, the higher our percentage also in bicuspid valves is. So when 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we had only a prevalence of approximately 2 to 3% bicuspid valves. Now it's above 10% in our center. And we see this especially in this younger female population. We see this in Asian populations. So this would be an item I think that we have to discuss in this trial. I don't think that we will stay with 0 in Mainz. We have done too many trials to stay at that level. But it is not easy, and it's a tough referral situation, because also in Germany, and this may also apply to Inhausen, many patients specifically want TAVR, and if they're low risk, they can also be they will also be accepted even by the insurance companies. So this is a specific item for Germany that will be different in other countries perhaps.
I would like to add something very important on the bicuspid issue, because we had one case where we thought this is a tricuspid valve. The patient was included, and the patient was randomized to the surgical arm, and intraoperatively the surgeon assigned this valve as a bicuspid valve. So this patient was included. If she would have been assigned to the TAVR arm, we would have missed that. So maybe there will be some patients where we miss the bicuspid valve, but not in the surgical arm, because we see the valves there. So this might introduce an important bias, which we could exclude if we allow some kinds of bicuspid valves, as you said.
Yeah, it's true that this is a very important topic, and I'm sure Elena has thoughts about that. But the issue is how do we, which type of bicuspid do we include? To which level do we accept to include patients with extremely calcified raphe, extreme calcification that are going to be easy to tackle by surgery, but that could also promote some complications for TAVI. So we're going to discuss about that with the steering committee. How are we going to handle that bicuspid issue? There may be some type of bicuspid, the easy ones that we can include in the trial, but we know that from the registries, it's only about 5 to 8% of the patients in our cohort of patients. So normally, apart from the bicuspid, we should be able to treat regular tricuspid patients. But this is a very important comment, and we're going to address that during the next steering committee calls. Is there a limit of age to propose TAVI to a patient in Germany, or can you treat at any age without comorbidities? You can do TAVI, or because in France, for example, it's about starting from 80, you can do TAVI quite easily. Below 20, below 80, it's more difficult.
I understand this. Sorry,
Sabine, go ahead.
As I understand, if I include a patient in a study, I can do it at any age, but so the decision remains with the heart team. If we say we can do it or we cannot do it within the study, it's upon us.
Yeah, I think it's both the heart team, and it's also, of course, insurance companies and the medical service of the insurance companies. So there may be regional dependencies and differences even in Germany. I would say that, as you said, the average age has become lower in Germany. I would say that it's not 80 plus. It was in the beginning, it was 85 in the GBA document, that irrespective of Euroscore, you would treat an 85-year-old plus always with TAVR. This age has decreased to somewhere like 70, 75, depending on the center. And there are, of course, cases like body mass indexes of 50 or 45 to 50, etc., where also our surgeons rather like a TAVR. And then there are isolated cases, maybe just below 70, even without major Euroscore or STS score values that would be intermediate or high risk. They can also be low risk. What our insurance companies or our heart team wants then is a specific selection of devices that have been tested and approved for low risk circumstances. So this would be a SAPIEN or a core valve.
Okay, thanks for sharing this. Is there also the situation in some of your centers, and maybe Helen, you can comment on this, where there is no like true heart team meetings, that you actually, the surgeon is coming to help you reviewing your patients, but there is no evaluation in a dedicated meeting of all aortic stenosis patients? And if you can maybe share with us how you overcome.
Yes, this is correct. I mean, we have every week we have a meeting, a heart team meeting with the surgeons, but we discuss the patients who are from the cardiology department, and we decide between TAVR and surgery. But we know that we have in our center patients who are referred directly to the surgeon with aortic stenosis, and who had probably their screening outside in another centers. And those patients are not discussed in a heart team. So probably, so we are trying to find these patients. We discussed with our surgeons. They are aware that we have the ongoing study, but I think this is something which has to be improved. I mean, we don't have a heart team for all aortic stenosis patients, because a patient who is obviously a surgical patient, he will not be discussed in a heart team meeting, because today in France, if a patient is 70 years old without comorbidity, of course, he will not have a TAVR. He will go to surgery. So those patients are not discussed. So we are trying to find these patients from the surgical department by their screening log, where they see the patient in their clinic. So this gives us some room to find some patients. And also I have another comment, because I saw the rate, the number of patients who were screened in Bern, in Bad Oeynhausen, but we don't screen the patients who are obviously TAVR patients. If we have a woman who is 84, we know in France, as was said by Didier, this patient who are over 80, they will have TAVR. So we don't screen, we don't consider they are screening patients for Rheia. We just don't screen them, and we do screening only in female who are less than 80, who don't have many comorbidities, and who are surgical candidates, as said by Sabina. And we take the surgical candidates, and this one are not so easy to find, because we have them from the cardiology department. So these were my comments on the screening and the enrollment.
Thank you very much, Helen, for sharing this. And maybe it's worth sharing also the experience from Innsbruck, because obviously Innsbruck is a heart team center, and they have come up with a very nice approach. And I would like to ask Nikolaos to maybe explain a little bit more about their so-called ACD approach and how it works for them.
Right. So I don't know if it's the optimal approach, but it's the way we are doing that. And I will give you the background. The background is that it is a university clinic, and there is a heart center. and we tried to create a win-win situation for both departments. So if you approach just one department and then leave the other one, so if we, let's say, approach the TAVI center and leave the surgical part, then the surgeons will not be that keen to include patients. So we tried, being a surgeon, we tried to create the benefits for both departments. And I think the benefit number one is that you create a discussion for every single patient. This is the reason why we decided to see together every single patient, even if this patient, as Helen said, is a clear-cut TAVI or a clear-cut surgical patient. Just to give you the situation here, our borderline is 80. So every patient above 80 is coming to TAVI. Every patient below 80 is coming to surgery. And of course, you have all these discussions on comorbidities, etc., and bicuspids. Now, this is the reason why we said, okay, we will take 80 as a cutoff, and we include patients from 75 to 85, because this is the area of interest, actually. And this is the area where we also target most of our major target group, which is the ladies with a small aortic annulus. And I think from a surgical point of view, and also from a transcatheter valve point of view, this is a very interesting population. Now, coming to the ACD approach. So the first thing is, of course, as Didier said before, to stop any preoccupied intention. So if the patient is coming from a referral physician to the Department of Cardiology for TAVI, then it will be very, very difficult to change the and rearrange this patient to a randomized study. So we try to approach the referring physicians. Now we have some more tools, and I would like to refer to to a special letter which was developed for this reason. But we did that on our normal contacts with when we are meeting with our physicians. Now at the pandemic time, it's probably important to have also some kind of a written approach. So the referral physician should know that there is a study running, and this study is targeting female patients with aortic stenosis, and those patients are being randomized in order to avoid any kind of discussions before. And we are then together, cardiologists and surgeons are responsible for giving the informed consent, for informing these patients. Now, the next step is to consider all comers, all female patients with an indication for treatment of aortic stenosis, to consider them as candidates for the study. And I think this is, again, important because if the patient, for example, has an LAD, 80% LAD, and you say, okay, she's 80, now we perform a PCI of the LAD, and then she's getting automatic TAVI, then this patient is can maybe lost from the randomization. So consider all female patients, and then discuss if this is a good candidate, and then go on with the diagnostic procedures. And I think, in my view, it is very important to decide together. Of course, there are always preferences, anatomical reasons, comorbidities. We've seen that. But I think that the most important thing is to go together to the patient, tell them we really don't know. And this is the nice thing in clinical research. We really don't know what is better for you. And there are two options. There are other diseases where we don't have any option. So in this case, we have two options, and we decide together if this is a good candidate for Rheia. This is the approach we have. I know this is not the panacea. It's not the always the best solution, but I think it works. Just two comments. One comment for the slow recruitment at this part. Of course, every study at the beginning has difficulties in recruitment, but I think that by now organizing some additional steps in recruitment and by giving the centers some additional options on how to recruit patients, we are going to have a very good start off in autumn. The second thing on anatomical reasons and bicuspid valves, I think it is very, very important to keep in mind that there may be some bias, but this bias is very, very, very low because the incidence, at least at this population, is quite low. If you take a look at the slide, there were only 13 patients which were not enrolled because of the bicuspid valve. I think it's important to keep in mind that our target is the small aortic annulus because this is where we have to answer some questions about post-procedural gradients, about left ventricular mass reduction and all those things. And for this reason, I would vote for keeping the tricuspid situation.
Thank you very much, Nikolaus, for sharing the experience of your center. I believe that it's always important to discuss all possible options because Helen doesn't have a real heart team to discuss all aortic stenosis patients. You have a different approach, and I believe also in the particular individual centers, the situation may be very different. So we really wanted to share all those experiences so that you can pick whatever is most appropriate and most relevant for you. I believe that if we just summarize, and I believe that everything was said already, it's really important to work with your referral network so that they are not blocking the study. And also it's really important to create this close collaboration between the cardiologists and the surgeons if it's not in place already, because the decision together is most probably the most important element of the best screening strategy for a Rheia. So as we are running slowly out of time, let me just also refer you to the Rheia webpage. It's really live platform, and you will find all kinds of resources there which you can utilize to even increase your enrollment. One of it is definitely a draft of the letter for your referral cardiologist, because it's not a mandatory text, it's an option for you. But we believe that if you would like to approach your referral network and you want to send them a letter or an email, feel free to use it. If you want to call them, obviously that's the best thing to discuss, at least on the phone, because they might have some questions. But having this draft available through the web page or through your dedicated CRA is definitely a very good tool. And another thing we would like to ask you to help us with is to plan a refresher meeting led by the CRA with the heart team and the study team. If you can help us to facilitate, to set up a date so that all the study team can get together and discuss your center-specific best approach, how to recruit for Rheia, I believe it's really, really worth it. We also produced some recruitment aids, materials with the flow charts, notepads, mouse pads, and updated study brochure, which will be handed over to you during those meetings. So I hope you will like it, you will use it, and it will further boost the enrollment. So for now, this is it, and thank you very much for joining the call. And I would like to open the floor to any questions or comments you might have, because we still have like 2 minutes to discuss.
No, I think it's very important to organize this refresh meeting. I think this is very good. For example, I'm sure in our center, some physicians forget about the study, and the refresh is always very important. And also send a letter to the cardiologist. I think it's also a very good option, because they are the first to see the patient with aortic stenosis. And if they know about the studies, they can already propose to a lady who is 75 the possibility to be enrolled in the trial to have TAVR or surgery. So I think these 2 points are very good, and it's something new. So probably it will improve the enrollment, probably.
Thank you, Helen. So if there are no further questions, or feel free to reach out to us at a later stage if a question comes up via email. And obviously also, because it's still holiday time for some of the countries and some of our colleagues couldn't join the call tonight, we will make it available, the recording, again using Rheia webpage. So if you feel you would like to listen to it again, feel free to do so. Otherwise, really thank you once again very much for taking your time to attend this call. I hope we shared some valuable additional information. And really thanks a lot for all your commitment and engagement in Rheia. And it's important to say that individually we achieve nothing, but as a Rheia team, I believe we will be able to successfully enroll the patients and have a good data set for exploration of many potential other scientific questions than just the primary endpoints. So thank you very much, and have a very nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.